Hello everybody, Ben Woodruff here, and in today's falconry video I'm going to be talking about feeding off the fist, the do's and the don'ts, and kind of breaking down different taxonomic groups and how to handle things. But before we do, if you haven't already, if you could hit subscribe, I very much appreciate it. It helps me keep this channel up and going. So, in falconry, we got to understand first and foremost, humans have a rich history working with all kinds of animals. You know, things like dogs and cats and horses and all kinds of things, all kinds of domestic animals, llamas, you name it. We've domesticated animals. But falconry is really the only situation where you're holding the animal, where you're in physical contact, where they're riding on you. You will ride on a horse, okay? You will ride on a camel. It's not riding on you, so that's a little bit different. But other than that, like a dog, it's not. You can pick it up, but that's not what you're doing. You're walking with it. Or a cat. I got a cat running around like crazy right now. She's a young kitten, and she might jump up into this. You're not just carrying a cat. With a raptor, with a bird of prey, you're carrying them unless they're off flying. She's tried to jump up here. We'll see if she comes on up. Now, with that, that's kind of the icon. If you're a non-falconer, that's what you see, the image, the idea of like a person holding their bird. This has caused... it's very much an iconic symbol. A human holding a bird of prey on their fist. There's a connection. Similar to a horse. If a person... Let me give you an example. So you can kind of wrap your head around this principle. If a person has a horse and they are walking alongside it, you know, they have it on a lead and you're walking with your horse. You're like, this is my horse and I'm walking with my horse. Ooh. But if you are on top of the horse, there's a fusion. And the perception that people have, there's an automatic subconscious connection that people make that horse and human are one. And it's like, ooh, whatever greatness the horse has, I'm now attached to. And there you go. Crazy cat. Her name's Catherine. She's a Bengal kitten. She's wild. It's the same thing with birds of prey. If you are sitting with a bird of prey perched near you, and you're like, hey, I'm sitting on a chair, here's my falcon on a block perch, yeah, this is my falcon. There's something different about just holding a bird. And you're like, ooh, and other people see it, non-falconers see it, it's like, ho, ho, ho. There's ego attached to that. And again, when it comes to symbols, I mean, if you show up, you know, think about anciently somebody showing up riding a horse, it just adds to your gravitas. It's the same thing with birds of prey. Now, I want you to know, because I know this to be the fact, and I have witnessed is what I call the Tiger King principle, where people will glom onto that, and they'll use that as a way to, to kind of deal with their own insecurities. They're like, oh, I'm kind of insecure, but I did the work and I got a bird. Look at me and look at my bird. Ooh, we're one and the same, and whatever beauty or greatness or power this bird has, you're associating it with me because I am holding it. Again, we're going to get to the nuts and bolts here in a minute, but I just want to address this principle first. I love to not hold my bird because of that, because I know that non-falconer is coming up to, you're coming like to a Renaissance fair, for example, and you see somebody and they're like, and there's kind of a sense of, well, I want to see this bird, I want to be close to this bird, but I got to deal with this jerky person who's full of ego, and I don't want to perpetuate that. So what I usually do if I'm at events is I'll do a screen perch, really tall, about chest height to me, and a big old long screen perch, and I'll put the birds on that, and then if somebody comes over to talk, I'll go lean on the perch. So it's like you and me, it's almost like you're at a bar, and it's like, how you doing there, butter? And look over here, and oh, here's a bird, and we're both talking about this bird. I'm not holding it, you're not holding it. We're both looking at it and enjoying it together. There's nothing wrong with holding a bird. It's the natural way to transport, haul, and do everything with a bird. But I just want to point that out, that it can also go bad. And as a falconer, if you're wanting to get into falconry, go ahead, hold your bird, share it, stuff, but just be aware that really quickly you can develop a sense of ego that is off-putting to everyone, even to other falconers. It's like, oh, come on. It's like, you know what? You're awesome, great. You got a bird, you got a permit, you're training a bird, cool. Well, you don't have to be holding it every second of every day. You can just have it around. So anyways, it's a little off topic, but I'm going to start with that because holding your bird is good for socializing them. But when you're getting a first bird, actually, hold on, I'm going to start this over. The information I'm about to give, the details and kind of the training philosophies I'm going to give, they apply to all raptors. Forget owls, I'm not going to really address owls in this, but they technically apply to owls too. But falcons, buzzards, which are soaring hawks, bootios, like red-tailed hawks, things like that, and accipiters, and then eagles, and then accipiters. Okay, so all of these things apply to all of those, but the least amount of trouble you're going to have dealing with this is with falcons. These apply even more to buzzards, and even more to eagles, and absolutely the most to accipiters. So it's all the same principle, but that order: falcons, buzzards, accipiters, and eagles and accipiters. So first of all, the first normal stage of training is to get a bird to sit on the fist without baiting and jumping off. And once it's sitting there, you got to train it to eat off the fist. Now, this is a crucial stage of training, but this promotes social bonding and food-related bonding. I always say this: in nature, everybody out there wants to either kill you and take your food, or kill you and make you food. Everybody wants to do that, except for your mate and your parents for a bit, but then your parents will ditch out on you, and then they will compete with you. So just your mate. So the act of taking food, giving food, that promotes social bonding, and it's really the key to the magic of falconry. If that is not how raptors bonded, we would be hard pressed to have any training. If you're training them like a dog or something, it wouldn't work because their brains are so different than ours. But you are saying, hey, look, you're sitting on my fist, there's food here, and when they bend their head down, that is dangerous because then they're vulnerable, they're not looking at you, and so them doing that builds trust. So normally when you're first getting them to do that, you're scratching the toe, and you're scratching, getting them to look down, and maybe you're looking away, you're scratching over here, having them eat. So eventually they're eating off the fist. Then you get them to hop to the fist, then fly to the fist, then fly to the fist outside. And then, of course, at that point, you're transitioning. Maybe you are going to train them to wait on like a falcon, or maybe you're going to train them to follow along like a Harris hawk, or maybe you're just going to go walk with them on the field off the fist and have them take off and chase something. And then when you're getting them back, are you calling them to the fist? Are you calling them to the lure? Are you calling them to a lure with food on it, or an ungarnished lure? There's a lot of different factors. But here's what'll happen. So when we're talking a passage bird, meaning a first-year bird, it's not an adult yet. Let's say you trapped it, or passage aged. Maybe you got it from a breeder and it's an older bird. At those ages, train them to eat off the fist. And eating off the fist, it's building that bond, it's building that trust, it's building that safety. When it comes to imprints, you can do that as well, but you've got to cut back a lot quicker. So what'll happen is raptors are not used to sharing food, other than kind of Harris hawks. They're not used to that. And so if you're on a kill, you mantle over it. You got to protect it and defend it. And any living thing coming near you is a threat. You got to mantle over it, maybe reach out and attack. And as we go down that road, falcons, buzzards, eagles, and accipiters, in that order, is progressively more of a problem in this field of aggression over the kill or over anything. If you're feeding them on the glove, that's food. They will develop the habit of, I need to be aggressive and defend this. And this happens sometimes very subtly. But it is a two-edged sword. The quickest way, if you ever have a bird that is not being trusting, it's baiting all over the place and it's not doing well, the quickest way to try to build trust in it is to be feeding it off of the fist. Simultaneously, the quickest way to develop aggression in a bird is excessively feeding them off of the fist. So it's like, what do? You have to gauge this. When it comes to raptors, all of them, but increasingly so again, falcons, buzzards, eagles, accipiters. When it goes to that is this is the intensity over here with the accipiters. All of them, this principle is true. And with all of them, there is no reaching your destination. You're like, I trained my bird to this or that. It's like, well, it can develop aggression. And then if you do the right techniques, you can get that aggression to go away. And then it might come back, and then it might go away. So think of you're driving a car, and it's got play in the wheel. So you're like this. This is what you're doing the entire time. You might not notice it with a falcon. It's still happening. You're like, oh, my bird's being kind of aggressive. You're not thinking much of it because falcons are pretty easy. Hawks, like a red-tailed hawk, buzzards, it's like, oh, my hawk's pretty good. Then you molt it, and then the next season, suddenly it's super aggressive. You're like, what happened? And eagles, then they, like, attack you. And accipiters, they will even, just try to get at your face. It's not good. So the principle is, do you feed off the fist? Yes or no? Yes. Initially, any bird, this is the first step. You get them to sit on the fist, and you get them to eat on the fist. How much are you feeding? Are you feeding tiny amounts? Are you feeding a big object? A big piece of meat, you got a whole quail leg or something there, that's visual. They can't swallow it all at once, so there's something visually to be defensive of. The problem is, if you feed the bird too much on the fist, eventually your glove is going to represent the kill. They're like, I'm feeling this, I'm gripping in it, I landed on it, right? I flew to the fist, landed on it. That's like flying to quarry and killing quarry, and now I'm still bound to it. And so the quickest thing to do, always feed off the fist initially. Gauge your bird. If they're starting to be a little squirrely and a little aggressive on the fist, lower the amount that they're doing. Lower the amount that you are feeding on it, so it's a much smaller piece of meat. But if they're starting to be actively aggressive and mantling and like reaching out at you, don't feed them on the fist at all. Use the fist just as a platform to hold them or to carry them in the field, and transfer all the food over to the lure. And again, you've seen my lure videos. If they become too aggressive on the lure, get them to come into the lure at first, but then start having them come to an ungarnished lure with nothing on it. So they land on the lure, and then you chuck a piece of meat to the side, and they jump off it and go over there. You hide the lure, you take an ungarnished glove, pick them up. It's a system that works pretty well, but it's going to adjust. If they start losing interest in the lure doing that, you got to put meat on it again for 2, 3, 4 times until they're like, oh yeah, right, and then they're starting to get aggressive over it, and then you start giving them an ungarnished lure. Throw the meat to the side. So you're going from meat to the glove, meat to the lure, meat to the lure, meat to throwing off the fist near the lure. You've got to just make sure to understand that this is constantly something that you have to adjust and that you have to tweak with. Now, when you have an imprint, imprints, the bad principle is getting an imprint. The nice thing is you can make them into whatever you want. You can train them however you want. But the bad thing, and they're much more social, they're less flighty. But the bad thing is, there's an age when the parents ditch out. The parents are feeding the babies, and then the babies grow to a certain part, and they start to get regressive. And at this age, the parents start leaving they'll come to near the nest with a maimed animal, and then the babies will fly after it, and they'll drop that maimed animal. They are training these babies how to hunt and how to pursue and how to chase. They do that for a week or two, and then the parents ditch out. The babies are like, oh, okay, I guess I gotta find something on my own to hunt. When that happens, they shut up. They stop being aggressive. They stop being vocal, because they're like, oh, when I'm vocal, it chases foods away. But if you have an imprint and you're feeding them off the fist all the time, then what'll happen is then you never left. You're the parent, and you never left. So that critical age when you're supposed to ditch out, you never disappeared. And so they keep vocalizing, and they keep being aggressive and more aggressive, as if they were in the nest still defending a kill from their siblings. And so you have to be very careful about this. So with an imprint, feed them off the fist initially, train them to fly to the fist, but keep that reward very small, as small as you can get away with, and have them still come. And make, so the principle is, you want the big reward to be them flying away from you towards either something to hunt or something that represents something they hunted, like a lure. They're flying away from you. Or if they're flying to you, there's a reward, but it's small. Not something that be super intense and aggressive over. Again, the principle with all of this is the quickest way to build trust with a raptor is feeding off the fist. Also, the quickest way to have that turn into aggression is by feeding them off the fist. So adjust. If they're too aggressive, reduce the amount. If they're way too aggressive, cut it all completely and just have the fist be a perch. And it's an important principle, and I think that a lot of times we don't discuss this. We just say, well, my falcon's getting a little aggressive on the fist, and it's like, well, you fed him on the fist too much. We'll start reducing that and have the fish just be a perch. But you can get away with it a falcon, because a falcon, they're usually pretty well mannered. With a red tail, with a buzzard, something like that, a red tail, Fruginous hawk, seems okay, but then if you go through them all, it could really mess up. And then eagles and accipiters are no joke. You're going to know it real quick. There's a lot of people who have ditched out on accipiters. Cooper's hawk or a goshawk. They're like, this is fun. And they're like, oh my gosh, I can't handle this level of aggression. And remember, there is nothing wrong with aggression. Aggression is good. You do not ever get rid of aggression. If you have a bird that seems so well behaved, I was like, oh, this bird is so behaved, just beautifully well-mannered, not aggressive at all. No, that is not a bird that doesn't have aggression. That is a bird that has had its aggressive tendencies channeled correctly in the correct direction, so it doesn't manifest in a way towards humans. That's what you want, a bird that's nice, you can touch them, you can pet them, they're fine, they're all around, they're gentle, and then when you're going after prey, then they're going. That is a properly channeled, aggressive channeled raptor. Okay, and so the dangerous thing is if a bird is going after a lure and they're being aggressive, it's over there. You can step away from that. If they're being aggressive and they're attached to your body, you're going to have a problem, because this really quickly could go really bad. You don't want a bird attached to you also reaching out and attacking you when you can't get them away. So again, just adjust. And remember, this is an absolute vital tool to falconry, is feeding off the fist and flying to the fist. But remember that it's also the opposite as well, that we keep forgetting that also reducing or eliminating feeding off the fist as needed is every bit as vital and useful as a tool as is feeding off the fist in the first place. So, hope this helps you in your falconry journey, and hope it's good to remember these basics. But if you haven't already, if you could hit subscribe, I very much appreciate it. Again, it helps me keep this channel going. Let me know in the comments your thoughts on this and what you do and what works for you. And as always, happy hawking.